Hi, this is Sweet Jude. How's everybody doing today? Hoping everybody's having a blessed Tuesday. Coming back at you with another video. Here I have it on the Mother Jones website. Uh, there's going to be uh, more food stamp cuts. They're getting ready to, they're trying to do more food stamp cuts. This article was as of July of this year. And I know you guys can't see it too good, but I'm going to be reading some of this to you. I'm going to basically read it to you. Uh, this is the most current one I can find. And they're talking about the food stamp cuts uh, and making it harder for people to get food stamps. So I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. And then after I read it to you, I'm going to talk about it. On Tuesday, the Trump administration floated a plan that could strip food stamps from more than 3 million people. The proposed rule change announced by the Department of Agriculture would limit the use of broad-based category eligibility, a system adopted by more than 40 states that makes some low-income people automatically eligible for food stamps based on their receipt of other forms of federal aid like temporary assistance for needy families. By undoing proportions of this automatic eligibility, the administration estimates it will save 2.5 billion dollars by pulling food stamps from millions of recipients. The administration has billed this as a necessary change to close what has labeled as a loophole that makes households eligible for food stamps without separate income or asset checks. The proposed rule would tighten categorical eligibility and only provide such assets to families who have received at least $50 per month in TANF benefits for 6 months or longer. States are taking advantage of loopholes that allow millions of people to receive Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program SNAP benefits, commonly known as food stamps, who would otherwise not qualify. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue wrote in Fox News published Tuesday, "It's my job to ensure the people who truly need food stamps receive what they're entitled to, but the waste must stop." Republicans have long lobbied to reduce food stamp expenditures by limiting categorical eligibility, which they see as wasteful and unfair, and attempted to pass a version of the USDA's proposed change in last year's Farm Bill. Democrats, on the other hand, see this change as a threat to the health and security of millions of low-income families by both narrowing food stamp eligibility while increasing paperwork families must complete to get food assistance. Some policy advocates on Tuesday came out against the change after failing to weaponize the 2008 Farm Bill to strike categorical eligibility from the SNAP program. President Donald Trump is defying Congress and waging war on workers and families who are struggling to make ends meet, said Ben Orski, the senior vice president of policy and strategy at the left-leaning Center for American Progress, in a statement. Other think tanks alongside CAP, like the Center on Budget Policy Priorities, have noted that restricting categorical eligibility could cause families to lose their food assistance altogether as they achieve small increases in pay or accrue just a few $1,000s in a safety net. Categorical eligibility currently allows states to tweak income and access limits to more gradually phase out SNAP benefits. As low income families' economic situations improve, so as to not undo modest financial gains. This proposed change is the latest of several other attempts by the Trump administration to curb food stamp access, including by imposing more severe work requirements and by changing the way the poverty threshold is calculated. Okay, so that's basically what this article is saying. It's basically saying that uh, they're going to make it harder for people to qualify for food stamps. they're gonna change the income requirements to where you're gonna basically have to be poorer. You're gonna have to be extremely poor to get food stamps. Um, I know here you can have here in Michigan you can have uh, I forget how much it is. You can have over $1,000 in your bank account and still receive food stamps. But according to this, they about to try to change that. Um, they don't they're going to change the requirements. It's going to be they're going to make it so that um, you don't you don't have to you like people that hardly have anything at all in the bank or no assets or hardly no assets, then you'll be able to get food stamps. So by doing that, by making those cuts, they're saying that they're going to save 2.5 billion just by pulling food stamp benefits for millions of recipients. Now, let me tell you what the problem of this, what the problem, uh, what the problem is with this. It's gonna, it's gonna plunge people deeper into poverty. What they talking about here is gonna plunge people deeper into poverty. And they said something about having stricter work requirements. Okay, yeah, I get that. I get that. But the problem with that is the wages are still low. People are working, but they're still poor. That's the problem with that. Yeah, you can have stricter worker requirements and have people require. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. People should be working. You should be trying to do the best you can. However, because the national minimum wage is only what 7.25 or something like that, and the housing costs are skyrocketing and food prices are going up, people are working, but they're still poor. So they still need food stamps. That's the problem with this. They think that it's just a matter of, well, what a lot of people think that are classists. It's just as simple as just going out there getting a job and you will be able to feed your family. It's not that simple, and they know that it's not that simple. They refuse to increase the federal minimum wage, and because they refuse to increase the federal minimum wage, people are going to be working, but they're still going to be poor. And if you tell them that, okay, well, you making a little bit of money here, so um, you know you don't no longer qualify for food stamps, even though they're still dirt poor. They're working, but they're still dirt poor. They barely, trying to scrape by, trying to pay their housing costs. They're trying to pay their utilities and necessities for the house, trying to make sure they got transportation to get back and forth to work because you gotta pay transportation costs to get back and forth to work. Gas prices are high, so if you got a car, you gotta put gas in the car, or if you live in one of our major cities, you have to ride your bus, um, ride your train or whatever. Well, that costs money. So you got to figure that into your budget. You got to figure your transportation costs into your budget. You got to, because housing costs are skyrocketing and they didn't cut Section 8 down. You got to try to scrape up the money to pay your shelter expenses, necessities for around the house. And then on top of that, you got to make sure your family is fed. Well, after you get done paying your housing expenses and all that, and transportation expenses and all that, it's not much money for these poor working families. It's not much money left over to buy food. And if you're getting paid every 2 weeks, you got to try to make that money stretch, down 2 weeks until you get your next paycheck. Okay. So they saying that, they're trying to make it sound like, oh, it's just as simple as, okay, well, let's have stricter work requirements and require people to go to work. And so if they go to work, they'll be able to feed their families. No, it's not that simple, and they know it's not that simple because they refuse to, like I said, they refuse to raise the federal minimum wage. There's a lot of people that are still working, and they're still poor. Okay, so they still need the food stamps. Now, I read in another article, which was back in 2008. This is more recent. I was reading another article that was back in 2018, and they were saying that um, that uh, they should they they're gonna rely more on the private agencies, like churches and organizations like that. They by we gonna go ahead and cut food stamps, so we'll put that extra burden on the churches and organizations to help people that need food. These people are those programs, those churches and programs, they already don't have a whole lot of funding. They're already struggling to keep afloat. The food pantries and everything are already struggling to keep afloat, and they're already struggling to keep their funding up. So what makes you think that by cutting people off of food stamps and making more people go to these organizations and churches and pantries, that they can feed all those people? They wrong for that. They wrong for that because they're cutting off that funding too. So you're basically relying on the generosity, people's generosity, basically, if that make decent amount of money to donate to these churches and these organizations so they can help feed the hungry. But the government says, okay, well, we gonna make more millions of dollars in cuts in food stamps. Okay, well, we are going to rely and expect the churches and the organizations to help the people that need food. They wrong for that because these organizations are already struggling to keep their funding afloat. It is hard if more people kicked off of food stamps, more people coming to them to get food assist help, then that's going to put more of a financial burden on these organizations and these churches. That is not okay, and they're wrong for that. So we at the end of the day, we need the kingdom. We really need God's kingdom to come because the Bible says hard times hard to deal with, and we are seeing evidence of it right here and right now. They made tax cuts for the rich. Now they're talking about taking more money away from the poor. And they obviously don't care about poor working families because there are quite a few people that are on food stamps. People are on food stamps are very stereotyped. The assumption is what people get receiving food stamps are just sitting up on the system and being lazy. But there are a lot of people, I don't know the exact numbers, but there are a lot of people that are receiving food stamps that are working. It's a lot, it's millions of people that are receiving food stamps. I think the percentages are pretty high. In another video, maybe I'll get those numbers to you. I don't have them access to them right now, but the percentages is pretty high of people that are working and receiving food stamps. What they're saying is you start making a little bit of money, they gonna cut you down. They gonna cut you off completely. And if you need food, go to your local food pantry or your local church or your local food pantry. Let them help you. Okay, well if you send thousands of people to these places, they're gonna only have so much funding. They're only gonna be able to help so many people because they're gonna be burdened down. Okay, so that's not cool. That ain't okay. And then they said towards the end of the article that, to my understanding, that they're gonna make it harder for people to qualify for food stamps. Uh, in other words, uh, you gonna have to virtually have no assets at all. You can't have no $1,000 in your bank account uh, as an emergency fund or something like that to qualify. In order to qualify for food stamps, you got to have little to nothing in your bank account, and you have to have virtually no assets in order to qualify for food stamps. They're making it harder for people to qualify for food stamps. And so, what it's going to do is going to plunge people deeper into poverty. Okay, uh, people are the food stamp program was originally created to to help families combat poverty. It wasn't originally started for that because the food stamp program started during the 1930s, during the Depression. And my mother says that my mother was born in 1940 in Chicago, and my mother was born and raised in Chicago, and she said black people used to couldn't even get food stamps. She said black people used to could not when she was coming up. She said we had to do the best we could because black people couldn't even get food stamps. The only people that could get them was white people. Okay, because when they first came out in the 1930s during the Depression, black people couldn't get the food stamps. Only white people could get food stamps, and and it was originally created to help combat poverty, to help combat hunger, to help combat poverty, to give the people the nutrition that they need and everything so they can sustain their families. So when you're making these cuts like this, you're gonna plunge people deeper into poverty, which means it's gonna make it more difficult for people to get out of poverty. People already having a hard time getting out of poverty, but when you make these cuts, you're going to make it more difficult for people to get out of poverty. And this guy says something about the waste in here. Okay, well, you need to be working on the waste. You need to spend more time trying to work on the waste instead of punishing uh, hard-working families. And so, and it also, as I've stated in other videos, is going to affect the children. The children are going to be uh, like I said, stated in other videos, statistically, children are the poorest people in this country because a child just can't just up and get out there and get a job. A child can't work. You can't work until you're at least 16 years old, and before that, I think you have to get a job permit. So a child just can't up and they outlawed. They used to have child labor. You used to back in the old days, children had to work, but they came out with this thing called the child labor laws, which I think they need to bring them back. But um, and so when they came out with the child labor laws, they passed that law saying that children could not work anymore. Okay, because they say children should be in school, they should be working. Okay, so I personally think that they should bring them back. Uh, because that'll get some of these teenagers and stuff and preteens off the street, give them some construction, give them something to do, so they're not on the street being idle, particularly if they're living in a single parent household and mom is at work and it's summertime. That'll give them some construction. That'll give them something to do. Plus, they can earn a little money. But that's a whole nother video. But they cut out the child labor law, so a child cannot go and get a job. So that's why statistically children are the poorest people in this country. They totally relying on their parents to provide their shelter, their food, and all that. Well, if the parents are struggling to provide those things, then the children are going to suffer. And like I said, there's a correlation between children not getting the nutrition that they need and school performance. If they don't get the food and the healthy food, the meals and stuff that they need to have so they can grow and thrive and help their brain function, then their school performance is going to suffer. If their school performance suffers, then the school districts are going to suffer because the national testing that they do, I forget what they call those, the MEP test. The scores are going to be low on the MEP test. When the scores are consistently low on MEP tests for schools, then the government says, okay, well, your school is not performing well, if they check count all the heads and there's so many heads missing, the next thing you know, they start closing schools up. And if there's less children graduating from high school, then our children are our future. Just in case you guys didn't know that, our children are our future. Okay, so it's very important that they get the nutrition that they need to thrive so they can do well in school. Okay, so it's going to affect the children. It's going to plunge families and children deeper into poverty. Uh, I don't know why they seem so determined to punish the adults when they don't realize that it's the children are in turn going to suffer, but they obviously don't care about the children either. And people say, uh, excuse me, I gotta cut my alarm off on my phone. People say, I'm back. People say, well, people need to stop having so many kids. I agree. I agree 100%. People should stop having so many kids. Particularly if you know you're already struggling, why have more kids? I agree with that 100%. But however, the children are here now. They can't send them back. They're here now. Okay, we already have. If somebody got 3, 4, 5 kids, well, they already here now. They already have them. So telling them that, oh, you shouldn't have had no kids, you should have, with this and that and the other, well, that's neither here or there. The kids are here now. It's a done deal. The children are here. So we need to take care of them uh, while they're here. Should people not have any children unless they can financially afford to take care of them? By all means. As I stated in other videos, if you ain't making 6 figures, then you don't need to be having no kids. Okay, and have a marriage mate. You need a marriage mate and 6 figures between a combination income between the two of you to even think about having kids. Okay, but the children are already here now. We got kids that's already here that need to be taken care of because at the end of the day, they didn't ask to come here. So when you refuse to increase the national minimum wage and housing costs, you don't have no regulation on housing costs. So landlords and stuff keep blowing up the prices of their apartments and things like that. Then you plunge it, and then on top of that, to add insult to injury, you want to cut the food stamps and Section 8. Well, you're plunging people deeper into poverty. There's going to be more people on the street, more homeless. The homeless rates are going to go up. The homeless rates are already horrible all over the country, and it's going to go up even more. So I guess at the end of the day, like I said, we need the system. We need Jesus to come back. Uh, this this whole system is just governed on greed. All they care about is the rich people. They don't care about the poor people. And at the end of the day, uh, when it all boils down to it, we got to trust God more. We got to put our trust in Jehovah God more and rely on Him more. People are not relying on God like they should. That's what it's gonna come down to. People gonna have to rely on God more because you see what the government is doing. The government don't care about nobody but the rich. They care about corporate welfare and making sure Amazon doesn't pay taxes. They care about the rich people making sure they get their tax cuts that they need. That's who they care about. They don't care about anybody. If you make under $1 million, sorry about your luck. Okay, that's how it is. So we got to rely on Jehovah God more. We see what they're doing in this system, and it's getting worse and worse. So that's what I wanted to talk about. And as a disclaimer, I am not currently receiving food stamps, and I am not currently receiving Section 8. So please do not put comments in my section and say, you need to stop mooching off the system and get off of food stamps. And I am working full time, 40 plus hours a week. Okay. So please don't come on my comment section and say, you need to get up off your butt and get a job and get off the system. I'm not on the system. Okay. I work 40 plus hours a week. Okay. So just to let you know that is, so if you want to type that, stop typing. That's what this guy named Briggs, World According to Briggs, he does a lot of he talks about the different cities and stuff, like 10 reasons not to move to California, 10 reasons to move to uh this city, 10 reasons to not move to that city. And he does a lot of demographical. It's go to his channel. It's interesting. He talks about the different cities and stuff, and he says that he says stop typing. So I love that comment. I love it when he says that. So if you wanna start typing that, stop typing. I'm not on food stamps and I'm not on Section 8. Like I said, I'm your YouTube economist. Okay, look at me as your YouTube economist. Okay, I'm just educating you. This is for educational purposes. Just educating people, letting people know what's going on, what the government is trying to do, and I'm just passionate about poverty. I'm passionate about poverty, and I'm just really concerned. Or really, it's really sad that when they keep making these cuts, programs that benefit low income people, uh, it's really sad. It's just going to plunge people deeper into poverty, and it's not going to help the economy because the more people that you pull out of poverty, that increases the economy. Okay, because you got more taxpayers. Once you get out of poverty and you get into another tax bracket, you start paying taxes. Okay, you got more taxpayers. So actually, that improves the economy. But you know, who pays me to think? Okay, let me know what you think in the comments section. I need you to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that notification bell. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Uh, I need you guys to help me get up to that 1,000 subscribe mark so I can start applying for monetization again. It's very frustrating that I have videos on here that I have thousands of hits on, but I cannot get paid. So I like doing YouTube. I enjoy doing YouTube, but it would be nice to earn a little something and make a little money. I ain't being greedy. It would be nice to get a little income. That's the only thing I'm saying. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Like I said, don't no mooching food stamp comments and no, because I'm not on these programs right now. Okay, so uh, just let me know. Sound off in the comment section of what you think. Uh, I got some more interesting video topics coming up, so stay tuned. Peace and love. This is Sweet June.